Beyond the words we speak lies a universe of meaning, locked behind barriers of language. Imagine a key, a universal translator for all languages, human and beyond. What understanding might we find within our own species and in the whispers of the wind, the songs of the whales? Prepare to listen, as never before.
Ever get that feeling? Like you really want to grasp something big, something complex, but you don't want to wade through a ton of information to get there. Well, think of this as your express lane to being seriously in the know.
A fast track to knowledge. I like it.
Yeah. Today we're diving deep into an idea that might have already crossed your mind. Like, what if we could actually talk to, well, everything?
Everything around us. You mean like the trees and the squirrels and the...
Exactly. Even the bacteria, maybe, like a universal translator from Star Trek, but for all life. A Grand Translator.
Whoa, that's ambitious.
It is, right. But we've been digging into some really cool ideas about AI and pattern recognition and how that could maybe bridge the gap between all these different ways life communicates.
So our mission today is to go full on out there and explore what would happen if we actually cracked the code of communication for all living things. No idea is too crazy.
You got it. We're going for the most mind-blowing possibilities. But before we get too wild, let's start with what we do know. The current landscape of interspecies communication. It's already pretty amazing, even without a Grand Translator.
Yeah, when you think about it, life is constantly talking, and not just with sounds.
Right, like whales and dolphins sending complex clicks and whistles across miles of ocean. That's insane.
And that's just one example. Elephants communicate through infrasound, vibrations that travel through the ground and air for kilometers, totally beyond our human hearing range.
It's like a secret language right under our noses.
Yeah.
Or feet, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you have bees doing these intricate dances to tell each other where to find food, like a tiny waggle dance GPS.
Don't forget the Wood Wide Web, this incredible network of fungi connecting trees underground. They actually send warnings about pests and share resources through these fungal threads.
It's mind-boggling. And there's Konst Slobodchikov's research on prairie dogs. Those little guys seem to have specific alarm calls for different predators, like they could even describe the color of a coyote's coat.
It all points to this incredible richness in how life communicates, but also the enormity of the challenge in building this Grand Translator. We're not just talking about decoding languages, we're talking about understanding entirely different ways of experiencing reality.
Right, like the concept of Welt.
Yeah.
That's the unique sensory world each species lives in. Think about bats, using echolocation to build a world out of sound. Or mantis shrimp, with 16 photoreceptors, seeing colors we can't even imagine.
How do you translate an experience that's so fundamentally different from our own? It's a huge hurdle, just trying to grasp those sensory realities. And then you have to consider the very different goals of communication.
True. I mean, we humans love to chat about abstract ideas, philosophy, whatever's trending on social media. But for a lot of animals, it's all about survival, food, danger, mate.
It's immediate and often instinctual. Plus, the evolutionary distances are vast. We last shared an ancestor with an octopus over 600 million years ago. Their intelligence evolved in a completely different way.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, how much overlap can there really be between such different evolutionary paths? And then there's the big one, the validation problem. How do we know we're getting the translation right? It's not like we can ask a dolphin, hey, did we understand you correctly?
Absolutely. The lack of direct feedback makes this incredibly challenging. But despite all that, there are some promising avenues, some really out there ideas being explored right now.
Okay, spill it. What are some of these wild, speculative directions? Give us the good stuff.
Well, machine learning is already showing potential. It can pick up on subtle patterns in animal vocalizations, stuff our ears and brains just miss, and behavioral response studies are helping us link specific signals with actions.
So we're starting to build a sort of dictionary, but not just of words, but of behaviors and responses. And what about all that research into embodied cognition, how a creature's physical form shapes its thoughts and communication?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Like a species without hands might communicate about objects very differently. And then there's the neurological mapping, actually trying to see how different brains process information. It's all super complex, but also incredibly exciting.
It feels like we're on the verge of some huge breakthroughs. And then you have the creation of shared referential systems. Apes and birds, learning symbolic language, associating symbols with concepts.
Exactly. It shows a potential for building a common ground, for bridging the gap between our minds and theirs. But this isn't just about technology. This ventures into some really deep philosophical territory.
Definitely, like the idea of cross-species empathy. Could we ever truly understand what it feels like to be another creature? I mean, Thomas Nagel famously argued that we can't even know what it's like to be a bat.
All right, Nagel highlighted the limits of our understanding, the subjective nature of consciousness, but then you have thinkers like David Abram who argue that we've lost an innate connection to the natural world, a way of communicating that indigenous cultures once had.
It's like we've forgotten how to listen. But one idea I found really interesting is the tiered approach to translation, starting with the basics, like understanding needs and dangers, and gradually working towards more complex exchanges.
That makes sense. Maybe start with species closer to us evolutionarily or those known for their intelligence, like great apes, ravens, dolphins, even our beloved pets. But here's where things get really interesting for me. What if, by understanding the basic needs of all life, we completely change how we manage resources on a global scale?
Wow, that's a big jump. So like if we knew exactly what a tree needed to thrive or what a bee colony needed to pollinate, it could revolutionize how we manage entire ecosystems.
Absolutely. Imagine a world where we can sense the needs of every organism, big or small, and use that information to make much smarter decisions about conservation and resource allocation. It's a radical shift in perspective, from human-centric to truly biocentric.
And then there's the ethical dimension. If we could truly understand the suffering of animals in factory farms, or the impact of deforestation from the perspective of the trees themselves, would we even be able to live with ourselves?
That's the big question, right? What are the most extreme ways our relationship with other species could change? Would we see a complete restructuring of human society, prioritizing the well-being of all life? New legal frameworks, radical changes to our industries and practices. The ethical implications are enormous.
It's mind-blowing. But how would we even go about building this Grand Translator, and what kind of crazy possibilities could it open up?
Well, picture a multi-layered system. One layer to capture all kinds of sensory input, from sound to chemical signals to electric fields. Then a processing layer using AI to analyze and categorize all that data.
So it's like a giant supercomputer, but for understanding the language of life.
Exactly. You'd also need a cross-modal translation layer to link different types of signals and translate between them. And then a context layer to factor in environmental and social information. All this would feed into an interface that humans can actually understand.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So in the near future, we might see more accurate translations of dolphin whistles, understand elephant rumbles, even know exactly what our dogs are feeling. But let's go further. What are the truly mind-bending long-term possibilities?
Okay, buckle up. Imagine two-way communication with great apes or dolphins, but through shared mental languages, accessed via neural interfaces. We'd be experiencing their thoughts, blurring the lines of individual consciousness.
Whoa, neural links. Direct mind-to-mind communication. That sounds like science fiction, but also kind of terrifying.
It is. But think about the insights we could gain into the nature of consciousness, intelligence, social structures, maybe even discover non-hierarchical, cooperative ways of organizing society that are far superior to our own.
Like learning from other species how to live in harmony with each other and the planet.
Exactly. And what if we could detect and interpret communications at the ecosystem level, like the signals passing between plants, fungi, microbes? Could we discover a form of planetary consciousness, a self-regulating intelligence within the biosphere itself?
A planetary consciousness, that's,
Right.
wow. I mean, it's almost spiritual in a way.
It is, but let's push it even further. What if we could translate between subjective realities, like experience the world as a bee, seeing ultraviolet light and navigating by polarized light, or as an electric eel, sensing the world through electric fields?
It'd be like unlocking entirely new senses, expanding our perception of reality itself. And imagine the art and science that could emerge from that. Music based on non-human soundscapes, or scientific breakthroughs based on sensing the world in entirely new ways.
Exactly. It's about more than just understanding words. It's about understanding entire ways of being. So how would even a rudimentary Grand Translator transform our world beyond the obvious scientific discoveries?
Yeah, how would it change us?
Well, think about our relationships with pets. If we could truly understand their emotions, desires, fears, it could revolutionize how we treat them. Maybe we'd recognize them as individuals with rights and needs we never even considered before.
Could we even reach a point where we grant them autonomy, like we do for humans? And how do we even define consent when dealing with non-human intelligence? It's a whole new ethical landscape.
It is. And then there's the impact on human interactions. We already struggle with cross-cultural understanding. Could AI-mediated communication, capturing all those subtle nuances, help bridge cultural divides and resolve conflicts?
It'd be amazing if it could. But what if it also exposes fundamental differences in values that are just irreconcilable? Would it lead to even more division?
It's a double-edged sword, no doubt. And on a grander scale, the relationships between species and ecosystems, what kind of radical ecological shifts could we see?
Yeah, like would we redesign our cities and infrastructure to accommodate the needs of keystone species? Would we learn how to collaborate with entire ecosystems to heal damaged environments? It's like a whole new approach to conservation, one that's truly collaborative.
Exactly. And the philosophical and ethical dimensions are huge. If we understood the subjective experience of all life, would we extend our ethical frameworks beyond carbon-based life? Would we feel obligated to protect entire ecosystems as conscious entities? It challenges our very definition of consciousness.
It's both exciting and terrifying, honestly.
It is. And you brought up the idea of a forest communicating. What if we could actually interface with that communication network? Imagine humans becoming nodes in a vast biological information system.
We'd be experiencing the forest from the inside out. It's like a literal wood wide web connection. Could it even lead to a loss of individual ego, emerging with a larger consciousness? It's a wild thought.
It is. But it speaks to the transformative potential of this whole concept. Now, let's revisit those initial challenges, but push them to the extreme. The validation problem, for example. Could AI evolve to a point where it can directly experience and validate understanding across species?
So like the AI becomes the ultimate translator, operating on principles we can't even fathom. And what about the risk of anthropomorphism? What if, in trying to avoid projecting human qualities onto other species, we create frameworks that are so alien, they actually hinder understanding?
It's a tough balance. And who controls this technology? Could it be used for exploitation, to manipulate and control other species in ways we can't imagine? Or could a super advanced AI become a neutral arbiter, establishing a new order based on universal understanding?
Scary and hopeful at the same time. And consent. Could we ever perceive and respect the consent of individual cells or atoms within a larger system? If everything is communicating, where does individual agency end and collective responsibility begin? It makes you rethink everything.
Absolutely. And responsibility. If a Grand Translator reveals this profound interconnectedness of all life, what's the ultimate responsibility of humanity? Do we even have individual responsibility anymore, or does it all become collective?
Those are some heavy questions. But you mentioned those incredible examples of animals helping humans in distress. It makes you wonder, if that level of interspecies empathy already exists, what amazing things could we achieve with a Grand Translator?
Right. Imagine building true partnerships with entire species, collaborating to solve environmental problems, learning from their unique knowledge and abilities. Maybe they hold the keys to solving climate change or developing new technologies. The possibilities are endless.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the current state of interspecies communication to some truly wild speculations about the future. But it all comes back to this. The potential of a Grand Translator goes way beyond simply understanding words. It opens the door to understanding consciousness, communication, ecosystems, and our place in the grand scheme of things.
It's a journey into the unknown, full of challenges and ethical dilemmas, but it also holds the promise of incredible discoveries and a profound shift in how we see ourselves and the world around us.
And that's what makes it so exciting. So to all our listeners, we urge you to keep exploring these ideas, to imagine your own outlandish possibilities, and to embrace the wonder and mystery of this vast interconnected web of life. Who knows what incredible secrets are waiting to be discovered?
And what unimaginable transformations await us if we can only learn to listen.
Our podcast AI voices are courtesy of Notebook LM and 11 Labs.
The humans and AIs of the AI Plus Roundtable, thank you for joining us on this exploration into uncharted territories.
We invite you to visit our Substack blog at airoad.substack.com for a much deeper text-based exploration on the topic you have just listened to.
We thank the humans of Innovation Toronto and our 12 AI colleagues, Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, Cohere, DeepSeek, 11 Labs, Gemini, Grok, Llama, Mistral, Notebook LM, Perplexity, for co-creating the more in-depth and expansive document that this podcast overview episode is based on.